Hello everyone, welcome back. Okay, as you can see, I've brought the bear cave back in for a bit of work. You can see it needs a bit of tidying up, a lot of weeding and stuff, and some of these trees are getting pretty tall now. They're touching all the way up to the ceiling, so we'll prune a few of them back. Trees not doing too great, to be honest. They were bare root trees when I got them, and I did have to chop back some of the roots, so I'm kind of surprised that I've only lost 2. I thought I'd lose a few more. There was one right in here, which I put in a kind of a hole in the cave where that big fern is there, and it had very little root on it, so I didn't think that one was going to survive. That's why I kind of put it there, thinking it didn't really matter. I have one here as well, one of the larch that didn't make it, but everything else survived. But you can see some of them only just like that. I did have to do a lot of chopping to the roots and things, and I put them in the shade out of the wind because they were bare rooted. They didn't have very much root on them, so they weren't tied in or anything. So I've left them in the shade, kind of, not full shade, but kind of against my fence, so the sun would only be kind of just hitting the tops of them. And you see some of them, whether it's because of the lack of roots or the lack of sun, they've kind of got a lot of brown on them. Or it could be lack of water, because we have had some pretty hot days over the summer. But they're all alive, and well, except for that one. And I'm sure by next year they'll start to really grow in. They've all kind of anchored in now, so the roots have all taken. So at least we have that to go on. Like that, they'll need a bit more TLC next year. I have moved them now onto a bench, so they're in full sun now for best parts of the day. So that might help as well. Okay, so stand up to do this one, I think. So first job, I suppose, will be to maybe look at the trees and see what needs doing to them before we work on the landscape. So most trees, to be honest, I'm just going to leave, especially ones like this that are suffering. See, these two here are suffering the most, probably because this was probably the most shaded, this and the back. You see back here underneath, they're quite brown back there too. So yeah, so I'm not really going to do a lot to the trees, only pruning back a little bit, the bigger ones, as they're starting to get out of shape now, or out of kind of like this guy here. We don't want this guy taking off too much. I know normally you would have the big trees at the front to create the perspective, but on this I don't mind the bigger trees at the back and the smaller trees kind of here, because you can see kind of it's a bit 3D looking with the cave and all that anyway, and it's a kind of close up of a forest rather than a kind of view from far away. This guy back here, I think we'll take it back to this one here. And again, just wispy branches on it, but I could probably take them back a little bit, these top ones, but I'm not going to go too crazy pruning them tight back or anything, because I just want them to get strong, and next spring hopefully they'll send out a lot more stronger shoots, and we can start growing them into good healthy trees. And like that, they were bare rooted, but they were also had a lot of big long branches around the bottom and stuff, which I had to chop right back to get them into this. So we'll have to see if I have to change some next year. Then we'll have to change some, but hopefully they'll be okay. This guy in the middle, I kind of wanted this one obviously to be my tallest tree, so I'm going to take this one back to here. I'll just reduce these couple of top branches here. that keep growing now. Take that one back. There's these long ones on this blue spruce here. We'll just see there's a bud there, so we'll take that one back to there. To there, just to move it back a bit. The tree at the back here, this guy will bring back to about here, I think. So I'll look for there's a bud out the front here, so I'll just go to here with it. Now this dead one, I was thinking will I leave it, but to be honest, the branching aren't great on it. You know, it doesn't have a lot of branching. If it had a lot of branching, then you could leave it and have it as a dead tree, but it's just got chopped branches, so it doesn't look very good. Bring that one back a bit in there. So rather than digging it out now and making a mess and possibly disturbing the roots of these, I'm just going to chop it back for now. And if we get a new tree to replace it, I'll maybe get onto a couple of the lads, my friends from the bonsai buddies, and because they got a bunch of them, maybe one of them will have a spare one they can give me to fill in that gap. Now this tree obviously was the one that was getting the most sun, and you can see it's growing probably the strongest. So this is why it's making me think a lot of the problem is still quite wispy, because it, especially down the bottom, because the bottom was kind of shaded from the fence. Now I probably want it down to about here though. Yeah, I think this needs to be our apex here. We'll just give these a little bit of a prune back, just so that the apex gets the majority of the energy, and like that we can always prune them Wednesday next year. There's some dead branches back here. Well, they've got buds on them, but to be honest they're very low anyway, so I'm going to take a couple of them off. Okay, so I think that's more or less. There's some long ones as well back there. We'll get rid of them. I can't even see them. Okay, I think that's more or less it for the trees. I'm just going to leave them grow now, and hopefully now they're in the sun they'll start to take off a bit. And now we're getting a lot of rain and sunshine, still in the 20s, but it's kind of raining quite heavy each day, so everything's getting well watered. Now the as you can see, the landscape is not looking great. It's full of weeds and all sorts, so we need to do a bit on that. So I suppose we'll get bears out first. There. Now we've got this. I don't mind this big fern down here at the front. That one's on it, not too bad. But this big one in here is a bit too big. So I'm just going to prune back some of these bigger leaves. I'd take it out and put a smaller one in there, but I don't think I'd get it out now. There was a kind of a hole I left in the rock there to plant it in, so I'd end up probably doing damage trying to get it out. I'm just going to reduce some of these longer leaves on these guys up here too. They'll just regrow. The handy thing with the ferns, you can just keep pruning them back and they just start again, and you can, when you get big leaves, just take off the big leaves and they send out small leaves again. Okay, so up the back here I'm not too bothered about what's going on. There's a lot of needles and things, which kind of looks natural. There's not a lot of weed up there. There's one there. There's a little fern there which is doing good. Other than that, everything else looks okay. It looks natural with the needles and the little ferns and stuff. There's a fern at the back there as well. There's a piece of grass, we'll get that out. The front here is not looking great. Just see them hanging down. I think maybe we'll pull that out now. It's starting to get a bit tatty. Maybe put another bit in at some stage, but probably next year, because now everything's going to start just dying off, so trees and all that. So I just want to kind of clean it up, really, ready for winter coming ahead. So we'll get rid of all this liverwort here at the front anyway. You can peel it all off. It's just overtaking the moss here. Slug, get rid of him. Seems to be a hole here. I think something's been digging in it. I'm just going to bury that bit of that root back in a minute. So I think I'm going to scrape all this out. See, I can probably break it better. I did finally go and collect some moss, so not only can we fix this up a bit, we can also remoss the hobbit house. Just push it all down onto the desk there for now, and we'll clean it up after. Dead moss as well here, so we can get rid of that. The moss that we glued onto the rock, you can see it's stayed glued on. It's a bit dried out now, but that seemed to work okay. Needs a bit of water on it, but it's kind of, it gives it a more natural look. You can see it's spreading now over the rock in places. Bring it in a bit closer, you see. You can see this bit here, how it's naturally starting to cover the rock now. So just a little bit of super glue just to hold it on to get it started. Seems to work okay. And like that, come the spring, we'll have to give just a good cleaning, get rid of all these. Give the trees a good cleaning and stuff, and maybe try and sort them out a bit. Here. Yeah, so I'm quite surprised that I did manage to get so many of them survive because of the kind of drastic work I had to do to get them into this planting. Ideally it would have been better probably to plant them in pots and get them roots growing and stuff first and then do it, but I took a chance with them. I just put them in, and like that they seem to have Some seem to be doing okay. Well, surviving anyway, but for the first year I wasn't expecting much out of them anyway. Next year hopefully we'll start getting a bit of good growth on them and they'll start filling out. Okay, so we'll just fill all this in now with a bit of our finer stuff. If I can bring this up a little bit better. So again, this is just a fine diameter. When I sieve out all the dust and the fine stuff out of my soil, I always keep it for jobs like this. And it's good for getting your moss to grow on too. You can use sand obviously, but may as well use this instead of throwing it away. I just think it gives a little bit more of a natural look too. And the sand sometimes can be a bit too bright or whatever. As you can see, roots in there growing down through the back of the cave. Just put in there now. If you haven't seen this cave before, there is a playlist of it, of how I made it. It's made out of polystyrene and then covered in grout and painted. As you can see, it ages well. Looks pretty realistic and it goes pretty hard and it's lightweight. Now, the pot is a concrete pot that I bought, which does weigh pretty hefty ton, but yeah, but the cave itself weighs practically nothing, so if that was made out of rock, I'd say this would be pretty hard to lift. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a little bit of wetting down now. And let's see if we can put a bit of moss in there. I might leave it quite bare now. I kind of like it without too much moss at the front. But we'll just put a few little bits here and there maybe. More so as kind of bushes or something. Now this moss isn't the greatest because it's very thick. You see how thick it is. But in things like this it works out okay. You can trim out some of it. And I collected this in full sun, so it will grow in full sun. So that's what you want to kind of do if you're going to be planting your moss on your plantings in full sun, then you want to collect the moss in full sun. And if you want it growing in the shade of your trees under a forest, then collect it in the shade places, because it does act different than moss depending on what type you get. I think I'm just going to kind of put little patches of it around just to kind of like that. Maybe another little bit in there, and I think that might be it. A bit just in the base of the cave there. Yeah, I quite like it with the bit of openness on it. So I will put some more in here again to keep this growing. Just going to try and remember to water it a bit more often, because it will dry out in them little cracks. Okay, so I think that's about it really. That's all I really needed to do with this one. Just give it a bit of a clean up. I've been meaning to do it for a while. I just haven't got round to it. Basically I needed somebody to help me lift it in, so I got my son to give me a hand there. Let's take off this leaves again. But yeah, I do like it a bit more open like that. You can see the cave more. So we better put our bears back in. So we put the mother back in there. Just calling our cubs in. Put one here. We normally have one up here somewhere. Maybe we'll just put the three of them down there like that. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. And hopefully, we'll bring long branch here in the spot. I'll just watch. Hopefully next year, next spring, they all start to really grow good, and we'll prune them up as tight as we can then, once they do. And hopefully we'll get a bit of better results. So we'll leave it at that. So as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, all that stuff. And like I said, if you want to check out how I made the cave or the polystyrene and the blowtorch and that, check that out, it's on the playlist. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.